Uh, so thank you, Diana, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight, for supporting our chapter. It's always great to see folks joining these meetings, even they being virtual meetings. So this is the second session for our UiPath Platform Series, and we are going to deep dive a little bit more on what is the platform, right? So as I was saying on the previous session, on the first session, like we see a lot of people talking about a lot about other things, about nice automations, AI, machine learning, and everything that comes with that. All that is great stuff. I certainly agree with that, and we should, we should be aware of them, of course. But for folks like myself that are not being developers lately, I would say, like I started as a developer, but lately I'm not developing anymore. So I am focusing on the platform. I run the platform for UiPath at TD Bank, and I seriously, I just love to do what I do. And then I decide, okay, let's share a little bit of what I know and what I can contribute. So that's where we are at UiPath Platform, session 2. And just moving a little bit forward, we're going to talk a little bit about us, introduce ourselves. Diana already started actually. Then I will go over the presentation. There, I'm going to do a little bit of recap from last session, and then get started with today's material and then see from there. In the end, we are going to have a Q&A. You don't have to wait until the end. If you have questions throughout the session, you want to get engaged, you can unmute yourself, speak up, ask your question. You can put on the chat. I will be watching the chat as well. You can, and then we can address our questions. I would appreciate actually if you, during the session, if you unmute yourself and talk, because then we get this session more engaging and more, interacting between us. So yeah, let's keep going. A little bit about us. As Diana was saying, we are the chapter, Canada chapter for the UiPath community. We try to run this online events as often as possible. This is the second for 2024, and we are planning to do more. We just don't have the cadence of them or the planning for them just now. But what we ask you that are watching us right now or watching this recording is to go to our community chapter. If you go to uipathcommunity.uipath.com and go to Americas, find out the Canada chapter, you can subscribe to our chapter. And then whenever we post something, you will get the notifications. You can subscribe to the specific events that we are running. If you do that, you also get notifications when something else happens with our chapter. For example, we do co-host events where someone in another chapter will run the event and we will be the co-host for that event, meaning you also will be getting the notifications for those events, right? So here is who we are. So Diana is our great leader. She has been running the community in the Americas for a little while, and she's doing a great job. So we always thank her for what she's doing. Shantanu Shande is one of our partners as one of the chapter leaders. He also helps us doing this online events. And then myself, I am another chapter leader. I am one of the MVPs, and if I'm not mistaken, the only from Canada for 2023 and 2024.
Correct.
Unfortunately, we don't have that many people engaged with UiPath, so we need to change that. So whoever is in the call wants to know more about the MVP program, needs some mentoring, or have some questions, you can reach out to me personally on LinkedIn. You can find myself on LinkedIn. That's the only platform I am in, actually. And yeah, I can definitely chat about that, get our questions addressed. All right, so platform, like what is the UiPath platform? Here in this first section, I will just run through a quick recap of what we saw last 2 weeks ago on our first session. And then after we review that, we are going to jump to today's material. So in very short, when we say the platform, we say that it's everything that all the infrastructure, right? Everything behind the scene required to run the automations. Not only run the automations, so developers have the ability to use the studio. Business users will have the UiPath Assistant on their laptop. Business users will have the access to insights, right? So what they see is only the front end, right? But what they don't see is everything that it's behind the scenes is what we refer to as the platform. Not only the servers, right? It's not only the actual servers. It's also guaranteeing, making sure the systems are secure, the systems are stable, there is enough, standards for for the access, for secure to keep the security. Um, when we install, we make sure that all the installation is done properly, following the best practices. We open up firewalls, we define the URLs, we define the DNS, everything. It's like endless list of items that we have to take care when we are providing this service. So, right. Some items that I just mentioned are more related to on-premises, right? Because here what we are seeing on the screen is actually the 3 different models for the UiPath platform. The first one on your left-hand side would be the cloud, which actually doesn't require installation, right? So you just sign in and then you get started. It's easy to get started, no installation required, and you can scale up, right, as per your need. The automation suite would be a similar UI, user interface, comparing to the cloud, very similar user experience as well. But the difference is you have to install on your premises, right? You get is one installer that is going to deploy all the products available. You don't have to install multiple products, right? So it's a much easier maintenance when it comes to installation, to upgrades, and so on, right? And then we have the standalone products on the far right, which is you pick and choose what products you want to buy and install, and then you get one MSI for Orchestrator, for example. Then you install Orchestrator. Then you get another MSI for Insights, and then you install Insights. Same for Test Manager, same for other products that you want to have it. So let me move to this next slide. Here we have a table with most of the differences between them. I'm not going to read all of them. It would be boring, but in very short, right? If you opt for the cloud approach, it's going to be easier to get started. It's going to be easier to maintain. potentially cheaper, and well, more reliable. There's many benefits of choosing the cloud. If you go for the automation suite, it's also a very good option, right? Because you get one installer, you provision that hardware required for this automation suite, and then you just go for it, right? It tends to be cheaper as well than standalone. I would say it depends on the product. It depends on the agreement between your company and the UiPath, right? Because there's also this enterprise agreements on the licenses and so on, right? And then we have the standalone. From my experience, of course, it's doable, but it's a little bit harder to install, to upgrade, and to maintain like several products where you have different versions of them. You have compatibility, you have server currency that you have to keep on each server, and then things just get harder and harder to to keep up with the standalone. But again, it's possible. On this link here, oh, sorry. On this link here, we have a up-to-date list. Let me just bring it on to the screen. So we have the product availability, the latest product availability. Again, I'm not going to, talk about all of them. Oh, where is it? But in very short, all the products, server products, are available in the cloud. Most of them are available on the automation suite as well. Some of them, like task mining, it's not oh no, which one? Marketplace communications mining, for example, is not available on the automation suite version, but I believe there is a plan to deploy it to automation suite in the coming versions, and it's definitely not available for the standalone. So if you take a look on this page, there are quite a few products that are not available on standalone version, but most of the main products, main tools that UiPath provides are available on the standalone as well. Okay, so moving forward, here we have a one picture for the whole platform architecture, right? So we have orchestrator right in the center, taking care of everything. So the orchestrator is the main piece of the entire ecosystem, right? The orchestrator is where everybody will talk to and get information from. We do have on the left-hand side the desktop where we are going to, or laptops, where we are going to install Studio, StudioX, Assistant, Task Capture, Task Mining, that is going to run on the target devices, right? We have browser applications, for example, Studio Web, Action Center, Insights, the orchestrator itself, right? Or through the web. And overall, yeah, that's the most important that I want to talk about. So all this, I'm just running through because it's just a recap. So here we have a picture of the cloud architecture, right? So we have on the bottom line the public cloud, and then in the middle we have the load balancers, WAF, DDoS protection, and then here we have all the products: orchestrator, automation cloud, integration service, AI, automation hub, insights, and so on and so forth. So the automation cloud will provide you, as I said before, instant sign up. You just get started and you are ready to go. It's easy to, I would say it's easy to maintain, right? You will get this user experience as you get in on premises. And from my experience, it's actually much easier to use the cloud version. There are a lot of little things, right, that you can do on cloud or show up when you are using the cloud version that you don't have when you are running um, the on-premises. And also one thing that I didn't mention is the currency of the whole platform. When you are on cloud, the cloud version gets updated every 2 weeks. Is this somewhere here? I don't remember. No, I don't see here. But yeah, probably it's on the previous slides. But when you are on cloud, it gets updated every 2 weeks or something like that, meaning you are always on top of the upgrades and security, vulnerabilities, patching, and everything else, right, that comes with it. All the great stuff that is deployed goes first to cloud, and then it's released to the on-premise or either the UI automation suite or the standalone version, right? On this topic of currency, right? So the cloud gets updated every 2 weeks, and then I didn't mention before, for the automation suite and standalone versions, it's two major upgrades every year. It's always in May and October, if I'm not mistaken, right? So it's the .4 and .10 versions are due to the month that they are released. And then they release minor versions, for example, .4, .1 with patches for that specific release. But if you are on premise, like even small versions, you have to upgrade your infrastructure, right? You have to run the installation or the upgrades, and that might be a very, very complex process depending on where you are. If you're in a small company, usually things tend to be a little bit easier, less paperwork, less bureaucracy, or less people to talk to. But if you are in a bank, like I am, TD Bank, like there are many, many people, we have to get approvals, processes that we have to comply, standards that we have to obey. And if we don't do, we can't do, right? If we don't follow the process, we just get red flags.
Hey, Jill, just to interject, they just did an announcement not too long ago, like within the last week or two, that from now on, those will just be updated once a year in October, no longer in the April-May timeframe.
Yeah, I was about to mention that. I heard that a few weeks ago
Yeah.
that this would be the trend, one
Yes.
major version, but I haven't seen the announcement. So
Right.
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, so yeah, there you go. So it's not twice a year anymore. It's once a year. And is that for automation suite and standalone versions or just for standalone versions?
I believe it's for the standalone versions. I'm not sure about the other. Yeah.
Yeah, standalone I'm pretty sure, but automation suite, it might be two still. Okay, so let's move on. Here's the architecture for the automation suite. It's slightly different, but overall, it's pretty much the same, right? I will jump to the next slide. And here is the architecture, the overall architecture for our environment with primary data center and a disaster recovery data center if you run a standalone installation. So we have quite a few pieces, moving pieces here. I don't know if anybody has questions regarding this, but yeah, in very short, we have the orchestrator right in the center. We have the high availability right here. And then we have the database in the bottom center left. And we do have some sort of, it's not the same environment, right? It's a much smaller environment on the data center, on the disaster recovery site, which a single node, a single SQL server, and a storage, right? So in very short, what we could have here, it's not shown on the diagram, but it could have like a global load balancer right in the middle of on this strip line here. So the global load balancer would transfer the traffic between the primary data center and then the DR data center. Whenever one goes down, the traffic is redirected to the other one. And the configuration, it really varies from company to company. This is just an example, I would say, right? We personally have something different than this. Okay, so that is it from the recap section. What we saw last week was up to this point, a little bit more, a little bit less, given our take. And we essentially, we discussed the overall platform, what was included and what was not included, of what types of architecture, what types of approaches like cloud, premises, automation suite, the standalone. So that was what we saw. Now coming to this week, I don't have here the meeting invitation, but what we proposed to discuss this week was the insights, the overall idea of the insights, dive deeper on this, and then also test manager and what we have when it comes to monitoring, right? What options we have for monitoring the automations. So these are the three main topics we are going to discuss today. I will just pause for a second, and I know we have some folks here. Do you guys have any questions related to what we saw so far? Okay, so let's move on. If you do have questions, you can again type on the chat or unmute yourself and speak up. Now, I'm going to start from the test manager, right? And again, this is what I'm going to talk here is not really addressed or directed to testers, right? Because when we talk about the platform, we don't have to be testers, right? But we have to know the tools. And Task Manager is one of them. So I don't know how to create test cases, right? I know we have to go to the studio, right? And then we get a project and we create some activities and that is it, right? Then we deploy to the orchestrator. The orchestrator will separate the test cases and the automation itself. Then from the task manager, I can pick up the test cases and create my task plan. Something very, very briefly, something like that. I know it's not just that. I know that there's much more in between the lines, right? I know that a tester will have much more tasks to do. But to be very honest, that like as a platform engineer or a platform owner, whatever, I don't have to know everything. And it's kind of impossible to know everything, right? So I know the overall idea of the tool. I know to get in and out of problems with Task Manager, UiPath Studio. But what I do know is the concept, right? And I know how Task Manager will connect to the orchestrator, it will connect to the UiPath Studio and UiPath Assistant, and how these pieces will work together, right? Because that's what it is really important from the platform perspective, right? When we talk about that, yeah, so back to test manager. So the test manager, it's actually one moving piece or one building block from a whole suite, right? So the test suite uh, has a few tools, and test manager is one of them. But when we say test manager, it's only the UI where testers will like manage and run the tests, right? But the test suite as a whole encompass like Studio, orchestrator, the testing robots, and also the assistant, right? Because if you have testing robots, you have to run them from the assistant. And then the testing robots, where they are going to run? Are they going to run from a laptop, from a VDI, from a virtual machine? Like all these things have to be considered. And then an additional piece to this whole thing would be the CI/CD integrations, which stands for continuous integration, continuous development, which is a pipeline where you make some changes on lower environment, you deploy them, like you commit those changes, they get deployed to the environment, and then this CI/CD pipeline will push your change towards the orchestrator, and depending the maturity of your CI/CD pipeline, it can even trigger autonomous testing on the automations you are planning to deploy. So the CI/CD by itself, we can talk for a few hours only on this CI/CD thing, because it's a very, very interesting topic, and also rather complex, because it's not very easy to set up a CI/CD pipeline and get it working throughout various environments. There's different techniques, there's different tools, different ways of doing a CI/CD pipeline. So yeah, for now, we just need to know, okay, CI/CD is an additional and optional thing that we can include of this ecosystem of the test suite. Okay, so very briefly, so then the studio is where testers will open up the project, work on the test cases, right? Build up, create testing data, and then they deploy this to the orchestrator. The orchestrator is the central piece, like it's orchestrating everything, is where we are going to create the schedules to run the testing robots. We are going to manage the automation itself, assets, triggers, all that kind of good stuff. And then the test manager is where we are going to manage the test, right? It's kind of obvious. But yeah, we do have we have the ability to create projects on the test manager, assign people, assign robots, and then we get the reports when we run a testing robot. It runs on the orchestrator, and then we get the reports. Oh, this succeeded, or it failed. What happened, and all that data that the automation will produce. We have it available on the testing manager. Right. Okay, so you all may know, like the UiPath as a whole, we have three major verticals, I would say, or they are horizontal, which is the discovery, automate, and operate. So when it comes to discovery, it's where we are we are discovering the automations, right? We are running the task capture, the task mining, getting to know what are the possibilities to create new automations, right? When it comes to automate, is the actual building the automation, right? We go to the studio and we create it. We use APIs, we use machine learning, we use AI to create document understanding, whatever. We are automating, we are creating the automation. And we do have operate, which is maintaining the automations, monitoring them, is post-deployment, right? The test suite is one of the tools that covers it all, right? It's part of all these verticals, right? When it comes to discovery, we're going to work with the task capture, right? When it comes to automate, we're going to work with the studio and build the task cases. And when it comes to operate, we're going to use the orchestrator and the task manager UIs to manage the automations, the testing automations and the testing robots, the data and everything else. So it's probably I don't know, maybe the only tool that can go throughout all the verticals. So still on task manager, like that's as I was saying, the task suite is used includes actually all these tools, right? But is also what the usage of the task manager is not only for RPA testing, because when you talk about UiPath, we may think, oh, we are going to create the robots and we are going to test them using the test manager. But it's actually not only that, right? We can use the task manager and create these testing automations virtually to any type of software, right? And that may include SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, Citrix, whatever application you have it in your laptop, it's potentially a candidate to be tested using this whole ecosystem, right? The task suite, task manager, and the other products. So it's a really interesting and useful tool that we may have available in our arsenal to to have more um, to work better with the applications. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about the integrations, right? By default, right, the task manager has native integrations to many different tools. For example, ServiceNow, SAP, Azure DevOps, Jira, and also it has some plugins. For example, the Jira X-Ray. So this is very interesting, especially just going back to the CI/CD pipeline. You're going to use this X-Ray to connect your test manager to Jira, right? So then when you run your test case here, and just a hypothetical scenario, you run your test case, it fails, it can create an item or an issue or story on Jira, and then you have this data flowing through test manager to Jira. So it's a really interesting integration. You can also work with source control like Git, GitHub, SVN, TFS, Bitbucket. So these are the default out of the box that comes with Test Manager. Okay. Here's a high-level architecture for the test manager. And well, this design is really interesting. We have all the connectors here, Jira, X-Ray, SAP, ServiceNow. We have the other tools from the test suite, Studio Orchestrator, Test Robots, and we have the apps that we're going to test right on the bottom. What else? Oops. Let me see. So before I move forward, we're going to get started with insights. Let me just pause for a moment and see if there's any questions while I take a sip of my coffee. Nope. Okay, so that was it regarding Task Manager. This is a very high level, like brief discussion about Task Manager, just to get you an idea of what it is, what it does, and the very high level architecture. So as a platform engineer, again, we don't have to know the very details of how to use, right? But we have to understand what it is and how this connects to the various tools in our platform. So for example, we do have by default, we do have the connection to the orchestrator, but we don't have the connection to Jenkins if we don't have a CI/CD pipeline. But eventually, you may have to implement that. So how you are going to connect, that's where we get engaged, right? To understand this connection, to talk to the various teams, to Jira team, and understand where to connect to, which firewalls we have to open, which connection we have to make. And then eventually, okay, now it's done. We just provision to the users and let them use the tool. Okay, so let's move forward. And now we are going to see the UiPath Insights. So the UiPath Insights is another of the major tools we have for the ecosystem as a whole. So together with Orchestrator, Insights will provide you, and in a very short, Insights is a dashboard and reporting tool. So you're going to get the data from the Orchestrator, and you're going to build up reports. So Insights without the Orchestrator doesn't have anything, right? You cannot have Insights without Orchestrator. You can, though, have Orchestrator without Insights, right? It's not a mandatory tool that on your ecosystem, but if you do choose to have it, you have to have Orchestrator. So again, dashboard, report, it comes with some predefined templates out of the box, 5, 7 templates, not too sure how many, but the most important ones. And then you can, of course, you can copy them, create your own based on the existing templates, or you can create your own, from scratch. And then it really depends on the business needs, right? It really depends what your users want to see, and then if the data is available, because we do have some limited data sets coming from the orchestrator to the insights. So by default, as I was saying, there are a few templates for robots, machine templates, processes, queues, tender reports, and it's not here, but it's also the ROI, return of investment report. I don't know why it's not here. Okay, so this is, I don't know if you ever had access to the insights, but this is the main page when you get access to the insights, right? And then when you click on each report, it will show up the data regarding, based on that report. So continue on this insights overview. We also have the ability to create schedules, right? Where you have a report, you just schedule that report to run on a specific day and time, and then it's going to run every day or as you decided to run, right? It depends on your configuration. We also have the ability to receive alerts, right? So the alerts will trigger depending on the criteria you define to that alert. Also, just a little bit back to the schedules. So you schedule a report, and then you have to define how you're going to get delivered, right? For as of today, if I'm not mistaken, you can only receive reports over the email. You may pick and choose the type of file you want to get, PDF, image, or an Excel spreadsheet, but the delivery method, it's only through email. Maybe we may have some updates in the coming versions. And also availability. So this is an important topic that we faced throughout our project that I was working on, is the availability, right? If you availability schedules and alerts are available on the cloud and standalone versions. Okay, so this is different than I was thinking. Yeah, so schedules and alerts, they are available on all the versions. The availability of the platform itself, like the tool, insights, it's different than the rest of the other tools. So there's no high availability for the insights, regardless if you are on cloud, if you're on premises, or if you are on automation suite. You have only one server, one service. If that service goes down, your insights goes down, right? That's what high availability means. So for Task Manager, we do have the option for the cloud approach, I believe, we do have the option to have high availability. But when it comes to standalone on premises, like there's no high availability for Task Manager as well. Just a note. Okay, so the high level architecture for the cloud insights, because the architecture for the Task Manager doesn't change much between the cloud and the on-premises. It's pretty much the same. If you go to on-premises, you just have like one server for the standalone version, right? You have one server for Windows where you're going to host the orchestrator website, one SQL server for the database, and that's it. Let me just think a little bit. Yeah, that's it. You need two servers and you are done. If you go for the automation suite, it's part of the overall tool. And then the cloud, you just enable your product and it's available. But the overall architecture will not change much. Now, when it comes to the insights, the cloud architecture differs quite a bit from the on-premise architecture. So here we have the cloud UI, Insights UI. We have the routing services, insight permissions, portal, location services, all that kind of stuff here. And then we do need a locker, right? Looker service. So the Looker service is provided by Google. It's the service that is actually going to create the dashboards. It's a rather complex topic. I'm not so educated on this, but I know the existence of Looker, and I know that it differs from the premises version, especially the standalone, because on the cloud, you have this as a container, right? As Azure Kubernetes container. That makes a whole difference because when you go to on-premises standalone, you need a whole Linux server for it. And then you install this inside of the Linux, you have to install a Docker, which is kind of put in a very short term and lame way. It would be like another OS system inside another, right? So you have the Linux, you have the Docker, and then inside the Docker, we have the Looker service installed. So it's a complex architecture, uh, and that makes a lot of differences, especially when it comes to security. Depending on, again, it always depends on where you are, the level of concern or the risk appetite of your company, this can change drastically. But if your company has a low risk appetite, they may raise some eyebrows when they see this, the Looker inside a Docker that is inside a Linux. But again, nothing impossible. It's not rocket science. It's just some clarifications that may have to be done. Some standards that you have to address, some security standards. All right, so overall architecture for the Insights Cloud. And I just noticed I forgot to include the on-premises architecture for Insights. I'm sorry about that. Now it's too late to change. But the on-premises architecture, it's a little bit different. Overall, we are going to see same things, but in different places. And as I was saying, when we go to on-premise, we just have to do things a little bit different. So we are running towards the end. We're leaning towards the end of the meeting. The next topic is about monitoring. So I will just give a few seconds to see if there is any questions on the floor. Nope. Okie dokie. So the third topic for this session is the monitoring, right? So we were talking about, so far, we talk about the overall platform as a whole, right? In the beginning, the recap, we saw all the architecture designs for the platform on premises cloud. Then we started to see Task Manager. We quickly saw what it is and what it does. We've just seen the insights, right? And the differences between insights and Task Manager. Now, the third item for today's session will be monitoring. So in here, we're going to focus on monitoring the automations running on the orchestrator, right? Because if we talk about monitoring the infrastructure itself, right? The servers, the services running on the servers, that's a different story. In some shape or form, they might merge like these topics. We may have some similarities between them. For example, we may extract logs using Splunk, and then these logs may contain automation logs, right? Messages that the automations are creating, but also may contain the server logs, right? What is happening on the servers itself. Let's say the IS went down, the World Wide Web service, which is required to run Orchestrator, went down. So that will trigger some errors, right? It can be captured by Splunk, right? It can be captured by the Orchestrator and then sent to Splunk. But we are going to focus here on the automation monitoring, right? Because especially in big enterprises, right, the infrastructure monitoring, it's usually something that comes by default, right? The platform itself, we from the platform, we don't have to worry too much with the infrastructure monitoring because, for example, SQL servers, right? When we create them, they already go by default to a monitoring list where the DBAs are going to watch them. If anything goes wrong on the SQL servers, we don't even get notice or get notified unless it affects the application, right? If something small happen on the SQL server, the DBAs or the monitoring team for the SQL servers will take action. If it doesn't affect the application itself, we don't even know, right? But if, let's say, the entire server goes down, then the application goes down, then of course we get notified, we have to work with them. But that's usually that comes by default. Same for IaaS servers, for example. When you go to the orchestrator URL, it has to be hosted somewhere. That's the IaaS server, right? So when we install the orchestrator on premise, and also the automation suite or the standalone versions, you have to install somewhere. So that physical or even virtual hardware belongs to a team, usually technology, information technology support, ITS teams, right? They will monitor the basics, right? They have a list of services and things that they have to watch for example, memory or CPU usage or spacing disk, all that kind of stuff, they care. And they will engage us if they need the application support, right? If they need something from the application aspect, from the application side. But the automation monitoring, this, they don't exist by default. So we do have to provide that service. So that's where insights actually start to help, because the first item would be the insights, right? When you have the dashboards, you have the reportings. So you are not, the insights by default is not meant to for monitoring the automations as a production support perspective, right? It's not there to, oh, this automation failed, so let me action upon this failure and fix this. So that's not the first purpose of insights. So for this, we do have the orchestrator monitoring. So when you go to the orchestrator, if you are production support analyst, right, from the automation perspective, like you want to see the automations, right? You want to see what automations are running, which ones are pending, which ones succeeded, and so forth. So the monitoring on the orchestrator side will provide you with that real-time data, right? In front of you, at a glance, you can see everything that is happening. Then, if you do have problems with specific automations, you can dive into specific ones and, excuse me, and then investigate what's going on, right? So that's the orchestrator. There are essentially 4 entities that we monitor from the orchestrator: machines, processes, queues, SLAs, right? And then we SLAs each concerning to the corresponding resource found in the orchestrator. Yeah, so that's what we see on the orchestrator. again, regarding the automations. You do need some specific permissions to see each data. So overall, you need the monitoring. There is a permission monitoring, right? And then on top of that, for example, if you're going to monitor the machines, you have to have permissions to the machines, processes the same, queues, and so forth, right? So you need several permissions in order to monitor. Additionally, you have historical monitoring coming, right? It's available on cloud, actually, the historical monitoring, where the orchestra sends the data to the insights. It's, if I'm not mistaken, you may have like up to 2 years of data available on the insights. But so far, it's only available on cloud. And I'm not too sure if there is any planning to roll out to the automation suite or the standalone version. Okay, so we also have we have the ability to create real-time data export, right? And that will be helpful, like when you get tools, for example, I was saying Splunk. So Splunk is an amazing tool. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about that, but Splunk is an amazing tool to keep an eye on logs, especially, right? So you connect Splunk to various data sources, right, for logs, and then the Splunk has a powerful engine that will create and will connect the dots between, like, it will get these various messages, right? And if you take a look, you don't see the correlation between them. But Splunk is able to capture, keys, keywords here and there, and see the trends and see what's going on. And then when a specific error happens, you can create a signature for that error. And then whenever that happens again, you get notified, you get alerts, you can see right away what's happening. So that's really interesting. And Orchestrator is, you can connect Splunk and Orchestrator and get real-time data flowing from one to the other. Yeah, so, but this one, okay, I forgot that. It's only available on cloud and automation suite, this real-time data export. If you have the standalone, you can still connect, but it depends. You are not going to get real-time. That there may have some delay. How much time is the delay? It depends. I think from company to company, they may have a different parameters, how often Splunk will pull up the data from the orchestrator. Okay, so Insights real-time monitoring. Again, before we jump right over the what is that, this feature is available only for customers using public preview on cloud, right? Yeah, it's cloud. I didn't write it down, but I'm pretty confident it's only for the cloud version. It's not even available for the automation suite. But when this rollouts to the general availability, like there will be some additional charges because you may have to select different tiers to get this Insights real-time monitoring. And what is that? So you will have 3 out-of-the-box templates, right? With real-time process, real-time queues, real-time machines. Meaning whatever happens on the orchestrator, you will be able to capture right away. And that's amazing because then you may use your Insights dashboards, even to monitor the automations, right? What's happening and what's not happening, right? You can get all the queue status, create triggers, schedule reports, get users notified from the insights. So it really helps a lot to keep an eye on the automations and what's going on. It gives you the ability to create, manage alerts based on custom triggers, processes, queues, and machines, what I've just said. After creating your specific alert, the group, the group, or the person selected will be alerted as soon as the trigger happens. So by default, like there is a delay between the orchestrator and the insights, right? So 15, 20, 30 minutes, roughly that, something like that. So it happens here on the orchestrator, and then the data flows through to the insights after a specific amount of time. So it's not a reliable source for monitoring the automation, right? But with this feature, it's instantaneous, right? It happens here, it goes there. And last but not least, Elasticsearch, right? So Elasticsearch is an option to replace, not to replace, but it's an option to dashboards and reporting, right? By default, do I have here? No, I may have in some other, let me see here. Just one quick second. Okay, so I just brought up to the screen a single node diagram deployment or deployment diagram. And even the UiPath documentation, they show the Elasticsearch as an option. And I believe this is still valid. It's been a while that since I download this, but so Elasticsearch and Kibana, both of them together, is an option to get the dashboards and reports on the screen for the users, right? Similar to what Insights does. So if you install Orchestrator, you may not have Insights, and you can put Elasticsearch, to replace that. So the connectivity is pretty similar. You will install the Orchestrator in one box. You will install for standalone version, I'm saying. You install the Elasticsearch on another server. And then when you can just connect the two. Actually, you have to install Elasticsearch first, and then not too sure the exact steps. But anyway, you can have that so then the Elasticsearch will pull up the data from the orchestrator, or the orchestrator will send the data to Elasticsearch, logs, processes, queue data, and then you can create your dashboards and your reports from Elasticsearch. Okay, and I believe that's it.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Joel?
And I just noticed we went 5 minutes over.
It was a
I'm
good
sorry.
presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, so in the meantime, like you are seeing on the screen, just other methods that you can get engaged, get more content, or get free content, especially same from our community. Again, UiPath community is an amazing place to mingle, to get to know other folks, and to get knowledge for free, right? That's amazing. So here's a one page, the sources that from where you can get more information. We are short on time, but I would highly recommend to go through the UiPath Academy. It's mind-blowing how much resource they have available for free. Like literally, you would need like an entire year to go through all the courses they have available for free, and it's high quality courses that they have there. So I already spent like a few hundred hours on this academy. And yeah, that's it. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me personally. or yeah, especially through LinkedIn. That would be the source.
Yeah, I don't see any questions in the chat. So again, if anybody has any, feel free to take yourself off mute and ask those. I just want to thank you all for attending tonight. And Joel, great presentation. Thank you so much. A lot of information.
Yeah, not a problem.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Joel.
Thank you.